In 1942, Helen Edel's world ceased to exist. The 16-year-old girl, part of a large family in a once thriving community, would be one of the few to survive. She grew up in Ruska, Poland, but when Nazi death squads began rounding up Jews, her parents sent her on a harrowing journey into the German Reich, the only possible way to escape the coming Holocaust. The girl you saw in that photo would eventually make her way to Canada and raise a family, but she died in 2014, unable to ever return to what is left of her hometown or to see the memorial established there to all those who were killed. Regg Cohn is a writer for the Toronto Star, regular contributor to Focus. He is also the son of Helen Edel and has recently written about his journey to tell his mother's story. Welcome, Martin.
Thank you.
Why did you decide to go on this journey to Poland?
This is a lifetime journey for me. This is a story that I grew up with my mother from when I was a child. And it's a story or a journey that we tried to do together actually in the mid-1980s when she and I went back to what was then Ukraine. It used to be Poland, but after the borders were changed in the war. And out of Lviv, we tried to go to Ruska, but our way was blocked by the then Ukrainian Soviet authorities. And we went to where she hid out during the war in what was then Poland, previously under part of Nazi Germany. But for me, that unfinished journey had to be completed this year. And when I found out, when I was invited to attend this memorial ceremony for this mass grave that had been uncovered over the last decade or so, I knew I had to go and finish the journey and see what she had wanted me to see.
Tell me about her journey when she comes home and the family says, out the door.
So it's 1942. The Nazis have forced all the Jews of Ruska into the Jewish ghetto where they are barred. Their way from coming and going, they're barred. And Ruska was a town of about 12,000 people at the time, majority Jewish. And her parents, she comes home one day and her bags are packed and her parents are telling her that she has to leave in a matter of moments. There's a smuggler that is helping her to get out. They introduce her to this man, Antek, who then leaves quietly before she does, goes ahead of her to the railway station, and then she leaves on her own, says goodbye to her parents. She is 16 years old at the time, and she's leaving not knowing if she will ever come back, going on the first trip of her life to the train station, buys a ticket, and then joins up with Antek on the train and continues on to be processed in a town called Przemyśl in what is now southeastern Poland, through Krakow, and on with her new foreign work permit because she has obtained through Antek, the smuggler, a false identity attesting to her being a Polish Catholic, subsuming her Jewish identity, and spends the war years, another 2 or so years, working for a German family. Her boss, one of her bosses, is in fact a Nazi commander in the SA, and that was how she survived. And that was through that survival instinct that she endured that journey.
Tell me more about Antek, this smuggler, because over the years we hear the Schindler stories, but there are many stories like this in the war of people who did things sometimes for profit, sometimes for nobler motives to get Jews out.
Yeah.
And this is actually a picture of him here.
Yeah, that's him with my mother, and it's quite a remarkable photograph. This is when they were in Przemyśl. They have just emerged from Ruska together. My mother has dodged some danger there there's a security sweep on the train. She hides in the washroom while they conduct that. They're in Przemyśl. Some of the people processing her are suspicious, and she comes up with this amazing excuse. They ask her for her identity papers, and she says, "Oh, I've left them in my church purse," which is what they would do on Sundays. You'd have your best church, and she runs out. And it's funny that Antek, who was paid for this by my mother's parents, did not become rich. This was not something he did all the time. He was a clerk in the employment office in Przemyśl. And he wanted to do, while they were still not completely safe, he took her to this photo studio for this picture, and you can tell there's clearly some bond between them. And after he got her to safety, so to speak, in the heart of the enemy in Nazi Germany, he continued to relay letters between, singular, between my mother and her parents, her mother and father, my grandparents. The last letter, the one and only letter before they themselves were killed in the Holocaust.
Just ahead, lest we forget, we're going to talk to Martin more about why it's so important to keep the memory of service and sacrifice and stories like that of Helen Edel when we come back.